Hi everybody, it's Brian and I'm back with a couple solutions for you. So in some conversations with some students who have maybe struggled to do some of the examples that we set out, I thought it would be a great idea if I kind of walked you through how to do it after the fact. Again, I think I mentioned this before, but I do want to be clear that there are multiple ways of doing these things. So just because I drew it one way and you drew it a different way doesn't mean that you drew it incorrectly. This is just how I might approach drawing this object. So I'm starting with assignment number 2. Assignment number 1, it seemed like most people got without too much difficulty. And so I wanted to show you kind of how I might go about drawing assignment number 2. And also give you, I clearly left out some dimensions in the assignment, so I apologize. I think some of you did a pretty good job of figuring those out or giving it your best guess based on proportion. So I apologize for that. Anyway, so here is the object I drew, and I will step you through the process one by one here. So my first step is to draw a big rectangle, which is the mass of the object. My next step is to cut out the cylinder through the top, or the half cylinder through the top. My next step is to cut out the side piece. Then I extrude a little brick on the side here. Then I cut out that hole, cut out the second hole, create a midplane. And if I hover over that for a second, there's the midplane, and I mirror that, all that geometry over to the other side, and then I add the fillets. Probably for the sake of expediency, maybe I would add the fillets first and then mirror, but you know, that's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So really quick, what might this look like if I start from scratch? I am gonna start here, a new design. Now I know in that other version I started with the front face. I'm actually going to start with the top face here to do it even slightly differently the second time. So I started with the top plane, invoke the corner rectangle, stick a rectangle in there. I got to go to my drawing here to see how big that rectangle is. It is 60 by 56. So I'll click back over here and we'll make this 60 by 56. I am tied into the origin point. The origin point doesn't matter all that much. I guess I could have used a center rectangle and worked as the midpoint, and then I wouldn't have needed to create a plane, so maybe that's a little bit more efficient. But again, there's lots of ways of drawing this. All right, that's it for the first sketch. I'm going to finish that sketch, move to extrude. I'm going to grab that thing, and that thing gets extruded 40 units up. So, whoops, go back to my extrude here. Edit that feature, and we're going to make that 40. And now I need to cut that cylinder out. So that's my next step. Again, you could cut the thing out on the front side, that weird shape, but I'm going to do the cylinder here on my right-hand side. So I'm going to go up here to create a sketch. I'm going to choose the right-hand side of my object as my sketch plane. I am then going to choose the center diameter circle, and I'm going to find that midpoint. Now the midpoint will show up if you hover there for a second. Again, you can force that by holding down Shift, selecting that, create a circle. I'm going to choose dimension, and I'm going to choose the outside of this. Now you notice when I do this, the dimension I'm given is a radius. It's a radius of 18, and yet this is showing me diameter. So here's a trick, and this is why I'm doing these videos. If you right-click before you position the dimension, so you see I'm ready to position the dimension. If I right-click, I can now choose radius here. So I'm going to choose radius. It's going to allow me to do that, and the radius here was 18. That locks that in, fully defined. You notice half the circle is off the object. That's totally fine. You can just select the two to extrude through. So I finished that sketch. I'm going to do an extrude. I'm going to select, really all I need is that guy. I can cut. I want to go through all. Click OK. That's going to cut out that cylinder. Now I want to deal with that funny shape here on the front. So I'm going to go back to my assignment drawing. And if I look at this, I'm going to zoom in here on this front face. This is the shape I'm cutting out. 60-degree opening here, this is 10 by 10, and it's 25 units high. Because it isn't defined, we can assume this is centered on that geometry. So that should be an inkling to me that A, because this is symmetrical about the middle of this line, that should be an indicator to use a mirror option, and I can use that mirror line from the midpoint of the existing geometry. So now I'm going to go back here, start a new sketch, do it on this face. I'm going to start by dropping that midpoint line. So I'm going to hover to find the midpoint, pull that line down. That's now a regular geometry line. So I'm going to choose that and choose construction. Okay? Hit escape to deselect it, choose line again, pin onto that line. So make sure you see that X. Try to avoid the midpoint here because you don't want to be tied into the midpoint. So you'll see I'll just come a little bit above that, come over. I'm going to come down at a 90 degree and then come over at an angle. So again, remember these are just sketches, right? Then, let's zoom in here so we can actually see what we're doing. I'm going to select this guy, whoops, I need to hold down shift, this guy and this guy, click mirror, my mirror line, I'm going to select it here, choose the dotted line, click OK, and now I can go ahead and add those dimensions. So my dimension from here to here is 10. My dimension of this line here is 10. My height from this point to that point is 25. And the angle from here to here should be 60 degrees. So when I do that, that fully defines that sketch, right? They're all black, everything's good to go. Now I can go ahead and finish my sketch. I'm going to go back to my home view so I can see what's going on. Extrude. I'm going to select that whole surface. I'm going to go in that way. I'm going to do to all. Again, no values necessary here. Click OK. And that creates that cut through of my object. Okay, now I need to start to deal with what I would call the wings, right? So if I go to the drawing, it's this guy here. Like these two wings. Again, they're mirror images of one another. That's why I would only draw one, because again, this is pretty complicated. It's got this recessed hole, this smaller hole inside, and then we're going to do all of that and mirror it over to the other side. I just want to look at what the dimensions are. So the inner hole is 8, the outer hole is 18. This is 30 this way by 32 that way. So let's see how I might approach doing this. So I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to go to my top plane, or in this case I'm going to rotate around and choose this bottom plane. That's what I want to draw on. Ooh, I don't like drawing that way though, that's confusing. Let's turn this way and do a top view. And then I'm going to create a 2-point rectangle. This is going to be, I think I said 30 this way, 32 this way. Okay, so here's my rectangle. I put the dimensions in. It's sort of floating off in space here. Now what I want to do is I want to tie the midpoint of this edge to the midpoint of this edge. So I'm just going to use a constraint to do that. So I'm going to choose the midpoint constraint. I'm going to choose this line and then choose that line. And magically, those things are tied together. That's it. It's now fully defined. I can finish the sketch, go back to my home view, and I'm going to extrude this guy, this thing, and sorry, this was one of the dimensions that was missing. This is 12 units. This is 12 millimeters in that direction. So there we go. That locks that guy in place. That's 1/2. I now want to deal with the circles, the cutouts, the counter bore, and then the hole that goes through. So I'm going to create yet another sketch on this surface. I want to line that hole up with the middle of this object. So one easy way to do that, invoke the line command, create a line from midpoint to midpoint, create that as a construction geometry line. That just creates that surface. And if I do that, I can hover in the midpoint and create that circle. This circle, I believe, had a diameter of 18. And that's it. So I finished that sketch. I'm going to extrude that guy down. So I'm going to cut into the surface. So the minute I pulled it into the surface, it moved the operation to cut. I'm going to do a -3 here. Click OK. Then I'm going to create yet another sketch. So create the sketch, choose this bottom surface, draw a circle. If I hover over the edge here for a second and then move over it, we'll find the center of the circle for me. So that's tying this circle's midpoint to this circle's midpoint, or center point rather. Give this a dimension. This had a diameter of 8. Finish the sketch. Extrude. Select this surface. Pull down. Again, I'm going to go to all and OK, and that runs that hole all the way through. So you'll see that hole goes all the way through there. Now, in the previous version, what I did was I took all of this and mirrored it over the other side. We're going to try something a little bit different here. I'm going to choose the fillet option now. I'm going to select this and this and this. Actually, I can just select this whole top surface. That'll get all of those faces. That surface will get that corner and that corner, and this face. And I should do that. And this is going to have a radius of 3 millimeters. So let's see if that selection set worked. It did. Oh, nope, it did not work. Everybody see what I did? I rolled that underneath surface. So what I want to do in my edges and features, I want to not select those. Let's go back. Fillet, this guy, 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 and that guy. So all of those surfaces get the fillet at a radius of 3. There we go. That's better. Okay, now that I have that, what I can do is I can select all of those things. So I'm going to first create my mirror line, or my mirror plane. So I'm going to go to my construct, geometry, mid plane, choose this surface and that surface. That creates my mid plane. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose mirror. So I'm going to go to create, go down to mirror. Pattern type, I want to mirror features. That's correct. I want to mirror all of those fillets. I want to mirror that, that, and that. So I want to grab all of those things. Mirror plane, I'm going to select that and choose the plane here and click OK. And lo and behold, yay, we've mirrored that over to the other side. And that completes the geometry in a pretty efficient manner. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully that was helpful for you to see that happen in real time. All right, good luck working on the rest of the assignments. Again, keep emailing me questions if you have them. And I think if people think this is a good idea, I will go ahead and do solutions for some of the other drawing assignments as well. All right, stay tuned for more Fusion 360 tutorials. See you all soon. Bye.